Hey, good morning, Ralocha. Other people to call me Dr. Mahova, but I'm not for that. Meji, it's fine for me. So we are about to start achieve or the issues that has to do with crafting a black agenda. It has actually become a project that is pushed by a certain black minority who have seen the light, and it is our responsibility as that minority to make sure that our ideological coherence find expression in South Africa, because we form a black majority in South Africa, but we remain a cultural minority, which means that we're just black in numbers. We have been relegated to the zones of non-humanness, that majority of our people have been relegated to the subhuman level of existing. And it is our responsibility as those who have seen the light to try to do something about it. And I think seminars such as this, although the mountain is quite high or big, but there's a starting point. There's something that we do about it to ensure that we find the light. So, and critically to the subject is that the black professional, it's such an important figure in South Africa, but majority of our people don't really think about politics in terms of who owns the means of production, what is their role post-1994, because everything else
deliberately to silence the native of this country, and we are saying, in order for us to have kind of a focused discourse around the issues of South Africa, we need not to strangulate the concept native. We need to resuscitate it and give it life, because once we do that, we will really understand our historical mission as the native of this country. And on top of that, we will understand the future of the next generation if we are not strangulating the native question. And so the native question, I think we are too late for us to start and discuss it. The other race groups in our country, they've already coalesced around their nativeness in whatever description that they use, that native concept. A classical example is the AfriForum. The AfriForum, we know very well, that has been accepted by the United Nations as a lobby group for the Afrikaner interest, meaning that they are assertive, they are focused, they know what they want. And also the so-called the British and the Europeans, they've also managed to gather together for their own interests as well, using number of what you call it the NGOs. And these NGOs also, they propagate and fight for the British and European interest. And so here in South Africa, if you really look the current status in our country, you find two dominant systems that is prevailing. Is the British as well as the Afrikaner system. And you don't find the native system. Hence, you don't find us also being represented around the table of the power matrix in our country. And in the power matrix table in our country, we only come as kind of useful idiots for these two power structures, the European or / British and the Afrikaner, what you call it, powers. And also that cascade to the issue of economy. Our economy in our country is divided into two, the British or European as well as the Afrikaner economy. They've managed to dissect our country according to their interest, as well as in education. The Afrikaner education or their methodology in teaching is still strong in our country, as well the British and the European teaching is still strong. Hence, you find that UCT and Stellenbosch, they are still ranked very high, even international. And we know it very well that whoever is heading the UCT is not heading the institution. It's just the face. The institution is something else. You can't be the vice chancellor of an institution that purports a particular culture and interest and claim that you are in charge. Definitely you are not in charge. You are just the face. As well in Stellenbosch, in Stellenbosch they've been using the so-called colored academics, in order to pacify us and think that there is transformation. And we know very well that there is no transformation in those spaces. But lately, what they've done, of which they are weaponizing the so-called African brothers against the natives, because if you do your audit around this institution, you find them occupying these prestigious positions of influence. And those are the questions that we have to ask ourselves, that if we, the natives, we are no longer represented around the issues of epistemology in our country, where are we represented, and where do we construct epistemology or knowledge if these institutions have been systematically, in a strategic manner, have been taken away from us? And so, to be quite honest with you guys, we have to accept that the 1994 early transition disempowered us a lot. And we always say freedom is freedom, but for the native in our country, freedom is like they were tightening the bondage of colonialism and apartheid. And so we need not to fool ourselves. We are not free at all, and the shackles of colonialism and apartheid, I can assure you, is strangulating us each and every day, because we are such a weak group, or we are such a weak nation here in South Africa. And so I think the seminar or this breakfast discussion that we are having today is to really start to unpeel and unpack and understand that if we don't come together and sit around the table only and only as natives, we are going to be wiped out. If we are not going to be wiped out, we are going to be the modern slaves, where we keep on providing the cheap labor. But recently we know it very well that the British and the Afrikaners, if you go to the farming community, they don't need our labor anymore. When you go to the restaurant, they don't need our labor anymore. Anyway, we are no longer needed. That's the reality, And the natives will suffer the same dilemma that the Aborigines in Australia are suffering, that the Indian natives in America are suffering. We are heading that direction. If you look what is happening in our township today, you want your human habitat space start to be a tourism space. It means that you are no longer a human being, you are just an object that people must come and witness another form of an animal in its allocation. And so I've never heard people saying there's a tourism in Sandton, there's a tourism in white areas or in Indian areas, or once the natives, they are saying there is a township tourism in Vilagaz. It's not about tourism. It's about trying to look at you as not human being, as something else. And so I think also that's another discussion that we need to have, that you can't say you come to our human habitat space in township and then that you say is a tourism. You find a bus of white people taking pictures at us, and then you go to Kruger National Park, the same white people, they come in numbers and take pictures in animals, and so there's no differentiation between us and those who are in Kruger National Park. Possibly our township are our Kruger National Parks now, but for human beings. And so such kind of things, I think it needs really the academics and the intelligentsia and the activists to keep on conscientizing our society that, look, we are becoming an endangered species, and the sooner we are no longer going to be relevant in this country, because even the kids that we have today, they are no longer our reflection. They are swinging the pendulum of being something and white, They are no longer really black or natives, their accent, people, they spend so much money taking their kids into private school. One is not about the culture, it's about the accent, The accent is very expensive. They spend millions and millions to say, bro, what's up? And so that's what they go and buy there, and that's all, And moreover, and then once they buy that brew, what's up? And then they also try to assimilate a culture that is not theirs. And once they start to get rejected by these people that they mimic, and then they get angry, and then they become non-entities in our society. They become despondent, and then they become another totally destructive element. And so I think those are the issues that we as the native, we need to start to discuss, because you'll never find an Afrikaner child in a mall speaking English. They still proud themselves with their language. As much as you don't find a European or a British person speaking Afrikaans, they speak their own language, and they dare not. Trust me, for them it's like sacrilege to speak a native language. When they do it, they patronize you, and then you get excited that he can speak Zulu, he can speak Tswana or even something that is so stupid, really, comparing how many people who speak English who are black and how many people who speak Afrikaans who are black. And the white people, they don't get excited, but they keep on correcting. You don't pronounce that word like that. But I don't remember people correcting a white person to say, don't pronounce, you are speaking a broken Zulu, a broken Venda, or broken Tswana, or Beji. But we simply get excited, And so I think they've managed to hollow our soul, to hollow our psyche, and those two things, they keep on playing it around, and that's why even today it's very difficult for us to think that our enemy is still the person who colonized us, is still the person who developed the apartheid laws. And I always ask myself, do you think that your enemy really loves you? The answer is very simple. They will never love you at all. And so the question is, why do we love them? Why do we keep on loving them when we know very well that they don't love us at all? They don't love us. That's the fact of the matter. And that is the sad reality, that we search for love where we are not being loved. And where we are being loved, we see them as enemy. Hence, there's so much native or native hatred in our country. When you look at the issue of Zondo Commission, it's only a black person, it's only a native versus another native. When you look in parliament, you see a native fighting another native. When you read a newspaper, you see a native fighting another native. When you listen to the analysts, they talk about native or native hatred. And so there is this master narrative that says a black person in South Africa of a native is corrupt, is incompetent, he can't be trusted with the coffers and so forth. But the fact of the matter is, our weakness as native made us to accept a system that is crooked, a system that is twisted, a system that is not welcoming us, a system that is based on inhumane and corruption. And then we embrace that particular system, thinking that that system is about the social material. But we know it now, that that system is not about the social material for the white people. That system is about control, is about making us eternal slaves. And so the white people, they don't care about the brick and mortar. They left Carlton Center. Carlton Center was one of the best places in our country, your Hebrew. But they left. Look at Yeovil. They left Yeovil. And so the issue of looking at this building, people building, and then you think that the white, they still have an interest in this country. They don't have an interest at all. They have their own mission, and sooner they will leave plantation like they've left Zimbabwe and like they've left Nigeria, and they will go back home and leave us with these empty bricks and cement, and then we won't know what to do with it. And so I think it's time now to say, once these guys, because I can assure you, they are starting to live, but in a very systematic way, and when they leave, they will leave us dry. And so we need to have that particular discussion that say, the more they create confusion amongst natives because they are leaving, they want us to ban ourselves, they want us to keep on killing ourselves. The question is, are we ready to reconcile as natives? Are we ready to have a proper agenda as natives? Are we ready to understand that our enemy is still the enemy that oppressed us during colonialism, is still the enemy that came up with apartheid? Are we ready for that the same enemy gave us the 1994 elite transition? And so in reality, the natives of this country have not received any freedom at all, but what we have been sold is just a mirage. And so I am saying the native question is very important. But don't be surprised that the more we get momentum, it won't be the white person who will come and throw stones at us. It won't be the white person who will come and ask that, what is this native? Trust me, it will be another black puppet. Because in South Africa, to gain prominence, in South Africa to find relevance, is to attack another native. That's how you gain relevance. But if you defend a native who's being abused, you won't get any relevance. You will also be abused as well. And you'll be called the dissident, you'll be called all these unwelcoming and unsympathetic ways. And so I think we need to be ready. And I'm really happy that you are here in Pulwane, and we have surpassed our expectation. I was talking to Doctor as well as to David to say, the way South Africa has been constructed, the spatial development, the apartheid spatial development was not only physical, but it was also mentally, because they understood very well that through anthropology and sociology, they will simply lock us in different spaces, understanding us, And so the village politics, that's another thing that the natives have to deal with. That's what we were discussing this morning. That, in South Africa, there's still this village politics, and it's still very strong. And this village politics is the one that keeps on breathing life to colonialism and apartheid. What is this village politics? The village politics is a very simple one. The villages are the reserved of the condemned. We still live in a Bantustan system. That Bantustan system has not been dismantled, because laws, they don't dismantle anything. They write and then they simply say they don't have law. I always say this is not post-apartheid. I'm saying it was the legislation of apartheid laws. And so Bantustan in South Africa is still there. But now it has encroached into other countries like your Zimbabwe, your Mozambique, and so forth. And so South Africa, as a trading station, it has managed to stretch its tentacles to other countries in the SADC region and make those countries the Bantustan of South Africa. Hence, you see them coming here in South Africa, providing us with their cheap labor, competing with the villagers in this country for a cheap labor as well. And so these are the conflicts that colonialism and apartheid keep on brewing in the SADC region. And so the issue of native question, it crosses our borders. Because, as I am saying, this animal, the system that keeps on protecting and assisting the white people to be dominant, it mutates. And the same animal, those who are behind this animal, which are the white people, to be quite honest, because they have to protect their interests, they are always 10, 20 steps ahead in terms of years. you know. And so we as Native, we don't know where South Africa is going in 10 or in 5 years. We only depend on the National Development Plan, of which that thing is very nonsensical. We need not to take it serious, you know. And we don't have our own Native agenda, you know. It's very simple. You don't even see it in education. You don't see it even in church, if there is such a thing. You don't see it even in the society. How do we interrelate as people in just a community, you know? And so I think the Natives, I have to conclude that so far we are being defeated. We are slaves. The master and the slave relation of Hegel, the Hegelian or idea of master and the slave is still intact in our country. And we have the so-called middle class, the black diamonds once they were termed, who are really disillusioned, who think that they've achieved because of material conditions. And really, again, the Native in this country need to sit down and unpeel and bend themselves for the next generation. If we're not going to unpeel what is happening in our country, we won't have the courage to bend ourselves so that the next generation can be able to have their own accent when they speak, to have their own mannerism when they are in the public spaces, so that they can be happy to be a Bedi, they can be happy to be a Venda, they can be happy to be a Zulu without any fear of saying possible I'm lower or I'm not up to a particular or to another race group. And so for me it was just an introduction, and the procedure is very simple because we don't want to waste your time. We have Professor Chris Malikana is here. We drove all the way from, I'm from Durban, and he is based in Johannesburg, and he was in a function last night. And you know, nowadays when you appear in a particular function in South Africa, you are simply boxed, you know. And if you appear in a function of the public protector, a person has been appointed by the parliament and who has been given constitutional mandate and who serve the South Africans. And when you appear in her function, you know, it's no longer a function, it becomes a faction, you know. It's like you are not supposed to be there, you get what I mean. But you can go to Stellenbosch and be given a professorship by Rupert, who's the vice chancellor of a particular institution, and there's nothing wrong, you know, no one raised an eyebrow. But when Chris Malikana is, surely if you can, like last night, it was in Mamun Kwebane's function, it's like, wow, is Chris losing his mind? Is part of a faction, hey, yo. What a professor, you know, this guy is becoming really a case to be worried each and every day. And so, but in simple terms, your kids will always say, fuck that, ne? Okay. I think what we really need to do, we need not to be scared of anyone. We need to be free in terms of your association, and you need to respect those who represent our Chapter 9 institutions, because Constitution, this is called Constitution, is ours, but we know very well that it's not ours. And I would like to bring him to give us kind of a 5 to 10 minutes. Why are we trying to have this native consultation, and what these consultative meetings that we have across the country will become or will end up being what. And let me invite Professor Chris Malikana. Thanks.
Good morning. I'm not going to be very long. The problem that is facing us in South Africa is not a South African problem because, as we know, some people, particularly white people, around 1908 to 1910, they decided to consolidate and to bury some of their differences to define themselves as South Africans. And that thing was codified in 1910. In 1910, when they formed what is called South Africa, in which the native African people were excluded. So when we talk about South Africa today, we need to be aware that that construct is not ours. That name is not ours. It's a name that white people of South Africa have defined for themselves. So subsequently, we met in 1912. Our ancestors met in 1912 in an attempt to forge a united front, to forge a nation, because they shared a common experience in relation to the white population in South Africa. And in that meeting, they established the South African Native National Congress, which subsequently became the African National Congress. One of the critical things that was agreed was that the leadership was to be sent to the Queen to ask why are we being excluded? We want to participate in the shaping of the destiny of the land. Of course, the leadership went, it was futile, and after that there were wars. So the argument we are putting forward is that we last met in 1912, and we never got a report back exactly from that delegation. So as native people of South Africa, we never met to define our destiny, our path. We never defined ourselves. We did not name ourselves, but we call ourselves today South Africans. But we know that that's not who we are. That's not our definition. And if we revert back to finding or trying to define who we are, we fall back to define ourselves as a continent. We are African people. But there are many African people. The African people of Northern Rhodesia define themselves as Zambians. The African people of Southern Rhodesia define themselves as Zimbabweans. And the African people of Southwest Africa even wrote to the United Nations to say in 1968, the United Nations must stop using the name Southwest Africa to describe or to define their land. Their land is Namibia. So that shows that we never met actually since 1912 to define who we are. So when we go to the African Union, what do we say? Who are we? We are South Africans. So we use the same name that was defined by our colonizers to describe ourselves. We are African people of South Africa, meaning we are African people of that white entity. So that's the starting point. We need to have this meeting to define ourselves, to define for ourselves a destiny in this country. We are, besides the fact that this country is ours, and we cannot be debating when did you arrive here? You know, no, when we settled here, some white people are claiming that, you know, the horseshoe theory, those who've done history, that Africans were Before white people arrived, they were arranged in a horseshoe on the South African landscape. And then white people just entered an empty piece of land, the hinterland. And then wars began. So the heart of South Africa was actually empty. So when we came from the north, as they claim, we populated in the form of a horseshoe. Born in the Cape, they came in and settled in this open piece of land. That was no one's land. So we find ourselves debating, this land, okay, when did we arrive and so forth. So the point is that we can't be debating that. I give an example that China today, the Chinese people, they did not have to debate whether that land belonged to them or not. What they did is that in their numbers, they organized themselves and fought for their land. And when you look at the map of China, the Chinese people amongst the Asians, right? They've defined for themselves that they are Chinese, drawing from the Qin dynasty, the name from the Qin dynasty. Does not mean that there were no other, the Chinese people did not have ethnic groups. There were many ethnic groups in China, but they got together and defined themselves as Chinese amongst the Asians. And when you look at the map of China, that China is neighbored by countries such as India, Russia, and other countries. But the point I want to make is that when a border was drawn, some Indian people fell inside the Chinese territory, and others are on the Indian territory. So those that are inside the Chinese territory are a minority in China. But those people don't define the agenda of China. The majority of the Chinese people, they define the agenda of China. And the people of Indian origin, they accept that they are a minority in China. And their rights being protected in China, they accept the plan that is coming from the Communist Party of China. Even if we go to the Chinese leadership, you can see it's overwhelmingly Chinese. Without any apology, it's their country. But when it comes to us in South Africa, there is a problem. We are 90% of the population as native African people. And by native African people, meaning descendants of those people that were dispossessed of the land by the white settler minority. That is what we mean. Native. We are not going to debate philosophical things. We are just going to be historical and define what we mean by the native African people. We are 90% of the population, yet we can't determine the agenda. I'll give an example. In the previous elections, the people of South Africa, particularly the native African people of South Africa, gave a mandate to two dominant political parties. They said, we want land expropriation without compensation. The African people who are members of the EFF gave that to the EFF. The African people who are members of the ANC gave that to the ANC. Further, they said, we want to nationalize the Reserve Bank. We want the Reserve Bank to be owned by the state. They gave these parties similar resolutions, a similar mandate. They get to Parliament. When you look at Parliament, both parties have got more than 2/3 majority. They agree on at least those two. You read the EFF, land expropriation without compensation. You read the ANC resolutions, land expropriation without compensation. When it's time to act, they come back to us. Do you want the land? Do you really, really want the land? Are you sure? What's the strategy? Is to delay. Is to delay so that we get to the next elections. The overall 2/3 majority by the both parties is the overall effect of that discouragement is that the 2/3 goes under and the hope or any potential of implementing fundamental change disappears. So, as a result, then a group of professionals decided to come together in Gauteng to say, no, the problem of African people is not that a shortage of political parties, but there's a shortage of a vision, a mission, and principles that bind us as African people across all walks of life and in different political organizations, churches, and other civil society organizations. We just need an agenda that will unite all of us. And on the basis of that agenda, then we can participate in politics, in business, in churches, and so forth. But we share a common agenda, vision, mission, and so forth. So in order to do that, we can't do that by just announcing it. We need to do that through organization. So we need to organize ourselves, consult broadly, come up with this vision, mission, principles for the country as African people, as native African people. So it was decided that no, we need to forge an instrument. It's not a political instrument, but it's an instrument through which we can mobilize native African people to realize that vision, mission, and principles to unite us. And on that basis, by mobilizing to the best of our abilities, maximally, the African people who constitute 90% of the population, we should be able to then approach different political organizations, different organizations in civil society, the churches, traditional leadership, and so forth, to say, this is the mission, this is the vision for the country. We want to engage you for you to share in this vision. And if you don't share the vision, it's fine. We'll go back to African people that you don't share the vision. Then they decide whether they recognize you as their leadership or not. And they decide the type of form of organizations that they want in different walks of life to take their struggles forward. So it's not out of reacting to particular individuals or people, but it's out of our own observations that the interests of the native African people in South Africa are not taken care of. You can look for yourself. Stats SA has got a raft of statistics that describe our condition. The highest unemployment rate is among African people. Highest level of poverty amongst African people. Highest forms of violence amongst African people. Right? Everything that is negative is concentrated amongst African people. You talk about positions of power, we are powerless. Right? More than 50% of African people have nothing, they own nothing. And those that are said to be owning something, when you check what assets they own, it's microwave, TV, and so forth. It's called assets. So we own nothing. And yet we've got a significant crop of highly skilled and educated people as African people. This crop of people, their skills and talents are exploited for the benefit of the white population. Even the mass of the African working class that is super exploited in the workplaces is for the benefit of the white population. So everything we do, even black business, black business might think that no, they're in business, they're making money. No, they're just a conduit to make money for the white population. Because not a single value chain in the South African economy is controlled by African people. You find black people in the middle, in retail and wholesale, right? Take food, it's simple food, meat, right? The large component of meat production is white people because they own the farms. We go and buy from white people, white abattoirs. We sell to African communities, and then we say that we're in business. But we don't control the value chain. We are just conduits and trying to get a small markup in the value chain. It's a problem. So without us taking ourselves seriously and organizing for power, we should not be afraid. We are organizing ourselves for power to take over our country. Nobody's going to do it for us. Right? We can get together in political parties and claim to be representing South Africans. But we need to realize that South Africa is not our country. That is why we suffer. South Africa is not our country. It's a white people's country. We need to build our country, which we still have to name. And those that are fighting for South Africans, it's fine. Tina, we are clear. We are for an agenda for native African people. So that's what we are about. So we are here to consult and hopefully to have a structure that is going to begin discussing at a very high and deep level the vision, mission, and principles. And on that basis, as time goes on, we need to roll out our activities to communities, lift the national cultural aspects, begin to bring hope and national assertiveness of African people to claim that this country is theirs. And that we, the educated people, particularly the intellectuals, professionals, and so forth, we should be the spearhead of all of this, to bring confidence to our people, to prevent our people from being exploited. I mean, churches, people are eating grass, mice, and so forth. That's the level of desperation and the level of loss of dignity amongst our people. So we are here to do that. It's a national effort that we need to undertake. It's a huge task. As Kolani was saying here, we will be attacked. You will be attacked for simply saying African people in South Africa do not own the land. Just for that, you are controversial. Right? You will be attacked for just saying the unemployment rate amongst Africans is the highest, 43%. You are controversial for that. So we should not be unfazed, we should be unfazed, we should be firm, stick to the truth, be unapologetic. This country is ours, and as we pursue our agenda, we make sure that we pull the masses of our people, we put the interests of women at the forefront, we put the interest of the working class among African people at the forefront, so that we draw as many people as possible, so that this initiative is not just an elitist initiative, but it's an initiative that captures the masses of our people, the women, the youth, the working class, right? We should be the spearhead of that movement. And thank you.
As I've said, all of us here who are going to participate. This is not a church. Randomly, you are going to be asked to come forward, of which I will be doing that. And so you must be ready. And there is no. You must come. And so there are people that I've just had a bilateral discussion with them. And so can they do as I've approached them? Thanks. You will say your name and then you will introduce yourself.
Okay. Thank you very much and good morning to everyone. I don't know if it's, I should say I'm fortunate or I'm unfortunate to be the first one to be picked to speak. I was not expecting that. It came as a surprise. But as an activist, you should always be ready to hit the call. My name is Makhatla Tepalepale. I'm an activist, a literary activist, to put it in that way. I'm a reject politician, I should put it that way. I've been expelled or suspended in every organization that I served in. One of those organizations was not even a political organization, it was a black management forum. when I was still a student at the University of Limpopo. I want to believe that mostly they would say that I was rejected because I was not towing the line. I did not believe in the collectiveness of their ideas or their ideology. So that is why I would be booted in those organizations. But I believe that it's because of my truth. I'm one person that I believe in my truth, and I believe that it is only my truth that will liberate me. So if I don't believe in a cause, I don't believe in a cause. You can even expel me, and I would still have my voice. So I would like to say that it's quite a privilege to be in the same space with Professor Malikani, because he's one of those natives that as young people we look up to, we follow his work. And you know, I did not know that he would be here. So when he came to the podium, I was like, oh, this is an aha moment. And I was quite excited. I even captured him. I'm not one of those people who like to subscribe to, I would call it celebrity mindset. I don't even take pictures with celebrities when they come or for anything. There are very few, like, I only have pictures with Lififi Tladi and Khafela Mpokhodi. Those are the only two celebrities in my life that I've taken pictures with, because they are the ones that I believe in their cause. And I'm also thinking that this is quite a great platform. And it's not even a coincidence that it is happening at the day that Steve Bantu Biko was born. For those who did not know or forgot, today was supposed to be a birthday to one of our natives who believed in our cause as Africans. I'm one of the people who like to call black people blacks, and my husband, who is here, would always correct me to say that, you know what, you should stop this thing of calling black people black. We are Africans. So, you know, then as time goes on, you know how marriage is, you know, you will, some other people, they normally say that intelligence is not sexually transmitted, and I always disagree with them that that is not true. You know, it is sexually transmitted. So, you know, then that's when I began to call people Africans. So, perhaps I should say that I'm quite excited that we have this platform, and I also hope and wish that this is not going to be one of those platforms that we come, you know, speak and do rhetorics like other organizations, because honestly speaking, I was very skeptical to come, because I've attended many seminars and many, you know, activities where we just come and do lip service. But when it comes to implementation, it becomes another problem. So, but I said, the name Native is quite attractive. Let me go and hear and see what is basically happening in that forum. Maybe it will be a different thing, because quite frankly, we need to organize as natives of this land. We do have toothless organizations, like I would still now, fortunately, there's nothing they can do to me because they've suspended me a long time ago. Like your Black Management Forum, it's just a toothless dog that, you know, it is there to say that they represent the aspirations of black managers. But quite frankly, what they do, they specialize in gala dinners. They specialize in media statements. But when it comes to the real work of organizing black managers and fighting the system, you cannot find them anywhere. How many black managers are suffocated in offices? You know, they are crying about discrimination. We are still fighting about the air conditioning places with white people. But Black Management Forum cannot even fight for basic things such as air conditioner, to say that, look, we are not the same and our temperatures are not the same. Also allow us as black professionals to have this air conditioner to ourselves. So we also have your Black Lawyers Association, one of also the toothless organization in our country. How many young graduates are exploited by these big firms? How many, you know, black young attorneys are getting briefed for serious work? They're only getting crumbs, but you have organizations that say that they represent the aspirations of black professionals, black lawyers, but in actual fact, they are just there to represent themselves and their stomachs. So we need to change the narrative as this platform to actually say that, we need to define our own agenda, as Professor has said, that let us have our own agenda and let us fight for serious causes that will liberate us in totality, because honestly speaking, we are not liberated. And I will also briefly tell you that I said I'm a literary activist, and I told you that I've been suspended in every organization. It's because I'm more of an actioneer, more of a doer. I don't believe in talking, I believe in doing things. I took it upon myself to start an organization called, some of you might have heard about it, some of you might not have heard about it. It's called Ponelopele Reading Club and Library. It's based in a very deep rural area in Limpopo. The area is called Dipatemi Village. Fortunately, some of you might have heard about Dipatemi through the, the articles that have been in the media platform about an attorney taking the municipality to court over the water issue. So one of the things that I pride myself is that, when I chose a life partner, I chose somebody that I knew that it's not somebody that's going to pull me down, but it's somebody that's going to, when we fight for injustices in this country, somebody that is going to fight with me. So my husband is an attorney, and one thing I like is that he fights for the underdogs. He fights for, for people, for our people, and also he's an author. He wrote 2 books on land. So that is why I'm saying that one of the things that I do is being a literary activist. I have a library, the first library to be built in a community. It's not a library that belongs to government, and it's not even a library that government contributed in building it. It's a library that was built by me with the assistance of my family and friends. And when I started that library, the intention was to conscientize the children, because the membership of our library is children from as early as 2 years to 18 years. So we wanted to conscientize these children to be, to accept themselves as they are, to actually say that we are African people and we accept ourselves, and to also instill in them black ideology. But I will tell you the frustration. We don't have progressive natives. When I started this library, I made a clarion call that we are looking for donation of books written by African authors, children's books written in both languages. But I will tell you now that friends of Ponelopele are white people. I've got Cinderella books filled in my library that I do not know what to do about them. I don't have books that speak to black children or African children to appreciate themselves. And I cannot throw those books away, because books are books, knowledge is knowledge. You understand my point? We've got white professors who have come forth to say that we want to help you. And I'm always suspicious that in the long run, what would have happened to this library? Because if these white people come in large numbers, I'm suspicious of their involvement, because I know that one day they would want to turn this library into something that pushes their agenda. The good thing is that I'm a very conscious person, so whenever somebody comes to offer assistance, I always look at this assistance, with an open mind. I don't just take help as it comes. So I really hope that with this platform, I'm willing to work with anyone who wants to advance an African agenda, a native agenda. So I'm saying that I'm opening my library to you to come and instill, this vision that you want to instill. And this thing of saying that you have to empower youth, you can't really empower a person who's 18 years. You need to start at a very early age. Because once a person is 18 years, I've seen it all, especially in this time. This person has seen it all. So you need to start at a very early age. That is why I'm saying membership of my library is start from children as early as 2 years, because that is where you can actually indoctrinate a child. But at 18 years, you cannot tell this person that this is right and wrong. So without wasting much time, I would just like to say that I'm very excited to be here, and I'm hopeful. I haven't really lost that much hope. I'm hopeful that this will set an agenda for natives, and this will not be a lip service like other organizations. This will not be a toothless organization that will be excited to be on panels, that will be excited to host breakfast sessions, your gala dinners and whatnot. But this will be a platform that will set a native agenda. This will be a platform that would say that it's enough that our land has been at the hands of minority. Can we have our land back? Like, what we will do with our land is up to us. If we want to build golf courses, yes, we also want to build those golf courses. So, thank you, Mr. Kolani, for the opportunity to be here. And I hope that indeed this is the beginning of greatness, also to appreciate ourselves as natives and also to say that we are ready to take this country forward.
I was actually forced to stand here and speak to you guys. I wasn't quite ready, but I'll speak to the issues that are important to me, or some of them that are actually quite frustrating as a woman who's staying in the village. We, as women, we are very frustrated by our chiefs in the villages. They are the ones who are responsible for allocating the piece of land, and there are areas which are currently under development, and we as women, when we do approach them seeking that piece of land, if you do not have a certain amount of money, they are not exactly willing to assist. So I was hoping that if I'm part of this setup, will be assisted, our voices will be heard when we seek that piece of land to develop and empower ourselves. And as I've said, I am very nervous, extremely nervous. I will just pack it here. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Letswalela. I'm Kwena Manamela, and I'm a student at the University of Limpopo. Thank you so much for the opportunity and for being invited to this prestigious event that will definitely make me learn so much and help me contribute to the organization. Based on what Professor said, I fully concur with everything that he said, and I would just like to add on what I think as natives we should do or we should look at in order to go forward. I believe the problem in South Africa is actually more on intellectuals and professionals, because they do have the knowledge, and with the knowledge that they have, they do not do what is expected. I'll give an example of the issue of religion. One thing that is holding the natives of this country back is the issue of religion. And if you look at most of the people that participate in these grass-eating situations and everything that is happening, those people are educated, if I may say. They are very literate. They can differentiate between right and wrong. And because as educated people, they are people that many people from the villages or from wherever, we look up to the educated. As someone who grew up in a village in Amatala, we used to look up to teachers, and they are the people that we want to be like. And if we see these professors or whatever professionals that are in our villages being in these churches and in this in this religion thing, we believe that is the best thing, and it is one thing that is taking the natives backward.
The other issue that I think is contributing to the natives not having so much power is the issue of consumerism. We are more of consumers than producers. If we were, as natives, work together as Jews, buy from each other, we only use products that are produced by our own people, wear clothes by our own African designers, that way we'll be contributing to the economy of this country. That way we'll be empowering our own people. So capitalism, in a way, has consumed us in a manner that we are just consumers. I'll give an example and say, as Africans, we are people of rhythm and spirit. We love music and we can dance, we can sing. But we as black people, we don't own record labels. We don't own instruments. We have our own drums. We can make music from our own drums. But right now, there are no black people who can make those drums. Now there are companies from outside making drums, the djembe drums, whatever drums that we have, that we grew up having those old women in the villages doing. They are no longer done. Everything that we just consume. That is one thing that is also making the natives to be where we are, because we cannot even fight our own battles without empowering the whites. The other issue, I would say, we have to learn as professionals. I think you are the ones who should, if professionals can do it, other people will do it also, because we look up to professionals. Like I said, we grow up looking up to you. If we can have that mentality that says, you know, we have that brain power for brain power with our conquerors, and stop looking down on ourselves and believe in ourselves to say, we are intelligent. These people came to our African continent and they learned everything from our forefathers. They went back, the Greeks, they went back and turned everything, make us look like we are stupid. Believe you me, we own mathematics. As much as we can tell our children that mathematics is difficult, we own mathematics as blacks. We own astronomy. We own medicine. Those things were studied by our own people. Issues of aesthetics. We are the ones who studied the manicures. It's not a European thing. If you read books from Kemet, you'll find women had manicures long before the white men came. But we are in a point where we do not have, I'd say we don't believe in ourselves. And we think everything beautiful comes from the West. The minute as natives we know, we understand fully that not everything from the West is good for us. And not everything that is African is best for us. That's where we're going to have a way forward. We can have this kind of setup and talk, but if we don't believe in ourselves and admit to ourselves and try to comprehend the issues of self-importance and understand that brain power, our brain powers, and their brain powers are the same. And in fact, we are more intelligent than them because they copied everything from us. We should start there. And I'm thankful for MEM for starting the library, whereby from 2 years, if we start from that age and you tell the little one to say, mathematics is not a problem. We started mathematics. How did we then build the pyramids? Because we were the ones who built the pyramids. They should understand that we are very intelligent as native people. It's just that we do not believe in ourselves. So let's start believing in ourselves. Let's stop this issue of consumerism and let's start producing. Let us support each other. You know, I read this book by the capitalist nigger. As much as I love different foods, I stopped liking samosas. And I said to myself, I've never seen an Indian man buying pap and morodu. I'm not going to buy samosas. Let's start there. Thank you so much.
Look, I think we For me, I'm very pleased. Trust me that we came to this province. You know, there's another thing that I hate. You know, to say Limpopo, KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape. That's still narrative from colonialist people to say you are from Limpopo, you are from that, you are from that. And that's why I'm saying, you know, we're still. What Professor Chris said, that South Africa was not existing, and is still not existing now for us, you know, but you have been classified according to our so-called race, tribes or nation and so forth, and then they confused us after that. But I think it is our role now to redefine all that. It's a lot of work, you know, to be quite honest. And what you said about the library is what Xubera is all about. There is not even a single Indian or a single white person who can claim that he supported or is supporting Xubera. That's why I can tell them to F at any time. Because I'm not being supported by a white person. You know, you start from there, being clean consciously to say, each and every muffin that I eat, it comes from my sweat. Each and every juice that I drink comes from my sweat. Everything that you see, black people contributed. Eddie contributed something, his car, his time, the inside factor, they are contributing what you see. Professor is contributing. You know, it's about contribution of black people. That's why we are here. It's our own sweat and blood. And so feel free to assert yourself. And you'll never, that's what we have to tell black people in this country or in the whole of Africa, the natives especially here, that we will never be free if we still survive on the benevolence of our oppressor. You will never be free. I have to emphasize that. You will never be free if you survive on the benevolence of your oppressor. You will never. That library, protect it. It must not be taken by this so-called kindness of white people. White people, they are not kind. If they are kind, we are not going to be where we are as black people. That must be in your mind each and every day, wherever you are, that your enemy will never be kind to you. Your enemy will never develop you. Don't be excited that you got a scholarship from Rhodes and Mandela and you are studying in Harvard. Tell me 10 of those students who have been recipient of those scholarships who are making difference in our communities, meaningful difference. They are not. They have been zombified. They have been made hollow. They have been destroyed. Because if your oppressor gives you a muffin or a samosa or a curry, it's capturing your soul. You will always be indebted to that oppressor. And so, don't be excited by the handouts from your enemy. It's very toxic. You talk about being assertive. You know, in the world, we as black people, there's one thing that we have to stop doing. Prof, we must not sacrifice goats. We must not sacrifice any animal. But we must be prepared to sacrifice ourselves. You know what makes the Muslim to be so fearless and to be so powerful? Because the enemy of the Muslim knows very well that the Muslim is prepared to die for his cause or for her cause at any time. A white person is also prepared to go and kill and die for his cause at any time. That's why they can go to Iraq. That's why they can go to Afghanistan. That's why they came with sheep here in South Africa, Cecil John Rhodes and the others, Jan van Riebeeck and so forth, because they were prepared that any person that we meet who's going to prevent our objective, we will kill him and we will fight. And so the black people, it's time now to be prepared to kill and to fight and to die for your cause. Because if you don't have that in your mentality of saying I can do self-sacrifice, you are not going to go anywhere. Don't be scared. And so the second session is going to provide us solutions on how to build the native movement in this province, and also how can we as native be strong and interconnect with other native in other provinces. We are no longer talking about our sufferings, our experiences, we know them, but now we're going to say, these are the solutions, this is how we're supposed to build this movement, so that when we depart here, we have something tangible in order to take it forward. We're not going to be a mouthpiece, trust me. We are going to be a movement, and we are going to be a fearless, radical, and a movement that is prepared to take its cause to another level of sacrifice. Because if we're not going to sacrifice ourselves, our kids will still be slaves. And this sacrifice is not going to be diluted. You know, there is no other race that is going to come and dilute our sacrifice. You know, we're not going to sing about Joslovo here, or Dadu, or no. That time is over. We've been fooled a lot, and for a long time we've been fooled. You know, we've been fooled. That's the fact. And this native movement is not going to be fooled. If we're not going to achieve anything, we will close doors rather than to mislead our people. If we're not going to have the mechanism to do things, Chris and I and the guys will write letters. We'll say, look, we don't have means to fight. We are closing doors. And so you won't hear that there is Mr. Van der Merwe, there is so-and-so who is funding this. We're not going to fool you. If we're not going to have finance to fight our cause, we'll close this, and then it will go back to our condemnation. And so I've already negotiated with some few people to come forward. I would like them to do that. And it is the last group, and then we'll have our late breakfast, the hot part of it, and then Dr. Maji will come and do the closing, because you are the host in a way. Thanks. But before we do that, Chrissy, you know what we do. We will openly invite certain people in this province to belong to the structure. Currently, we are not negotiating, you know. We are not going to negotiate. We don't, as we said in Durban, we are very skeptical of volunteers. And so we will simply point certain people. Thanks a lot.
Tobela, Lekai, this is how we greet here, Tobela. Yes, welcome. One of the great leaders intellectually, Professor Mutsukupeko, says it's only dogs and slaves who are given names by those who own them. So that we need to change. We need to change that. The wrong names that we carry, which were given to us by the master, we need to take them from our ID books, because that's about identity. The name South Africa has been spoken about a lot. Prof, I hope I'm not insulting. Yeah. We need to change it. When you change it, you don't really need this type of sessions. You need intellectuals who can sit in small groups, come up with these ideas, develop them, and ensure that the narrative is driven, and we engage our leaders politically. because they are the ones who can actually do these things. Prof is a professor. He went to, I believe, university and other institutions. But the question I've always had is, whose education do we claim to imbibe? When we are qualified, in whose education are we qualified? Which books do we read at university? Do we know the values that are in the books? Do we ever apply our minds to that? And it appears that we don't, because you become qualified. I'm an attorney. The laws that I studied are not African laws. The only African law that I studied is one called customary law. The book in customary law, it's written by one Becker. He teaches me African, or should I say customary law. Now, how is that important? It's important because the legal system that we have in the country, which is guided by the Constitution, does not contain our values. But interestingly, the Constitution opens space for our values to be brought into the legal system. But you then need your BLA and African law practitioners and others who will bring about these values into the legal system. But they've got to be led by some institution, and this institution that has created this forum can do that and engage professionals in different fields. If you go to a hospital, some of the illnesses we are inflicted with, they are African solutions to attend to them. But you approach a surgery or a hospital and the doctor is a native. But they are taught to ignore anything that is African. And this is the point I want to drive home, that as natives, what we should be doing, we should be engaging professionals at the right time and say, in each field in society, let's bring African values and African solutions. And interestingly, most of the African solutions, they are not expensive, because mainly they are spiritual, if you talk about health, for instance. So my take therefore, and for this forum, it's a good forum. Let's work together. When in the next 50 years, we review the work that we've been able to do, we should, in each discipline at the university, have African authors. And when we claim to be educated, we should, on the basis of the claim of education that we have, we should be saying that the material that we read to become professors, to become doctors, it's the material that reflects who we are as a people. That's why the first speaker who came here, who's running a library, she said she gets donation from our brothers and sisters from Europe, because they understand that a child who reads Cinderella is going to take in Western values, and they want us to live like them, and of course without living with us. So they make efforts and ensure that some small corner in the Eastern Cape, where there's a small library, or in Limpopo, where there's a small library, Cinderella is going to be read. Who's making efforts from our community? No one. And even those who make efforts, well, they try at times, but it's very limited. But interestingly, the center of reading, that would be the reading club or the library. When children, go to matric, post-matric and all of that, and they remember the material they read at the library, it's not anything that taught them to respect their parents, who are not educated. The parent is not educated, the child is educated. But the material tells you, no, you should not take serious that particular person, because this person is not serious. So you then have these children who don't have relations with their neighbors. So my take, and I must not talk further, I don't want to talk about land, because I might be very spirited and yeah. No, the only thing I should say about it, because I'm encouraged to talk about it, is that we should just be logical, you know. And when we are logical, the only question is, if you go to Asia, who owns Asia? If you go to Europe, who owns Europe? Why does it change when it comes to this count? Is it logical? And if we ask those questions, even when we approach the Constitution and ask ourselves whether there are solutions in the Constitution, that should then inform us. And the issue of the delays, you know, the consultative process and all of that, we know about those. But, you know, one of the most misleading aspects has been the amendment thing. Because there are solutions there in Section 25 of the Constitution. If you can note this, guys, all of you, just go and read subsection 8 of Section 25. There's a solution there. It says, if I can tell you, you can depart from any provision in Section 25. And one of the provisions in Section 25 is the requirement of payment of compensation. So what that subsection 8 says is, you can depart from the requirement of payment of compensation. You exclude compensation when you expropriate land. Expropriate, but there are other programs as well other than expropriation. One of the requirements in Section 25 is the claiming of land after the 19th of June 1913. You don't claim before that period, but subsection 8 says no, you can depart from that. Anything can be departed from. It's very simple. So this guy just deliberately misdirected themselves for the reasons that they have. So what a native forum should be doing, working with other organizations, is to say, no, it's fine, you can amend. But the problem with the amendment is that it's going to be challenged. And the likelihood is that because may likely not be properly amended, the legal challenge may be successful. So why don't you use what has been certified to be constitutional, which is the text in the Constitution? And when you use it, you bring about a law which then facilitates its departure. So maybe as a native forum, what we should at some stage tell the country is that as much as you think you can amend, but already there's a solution in the Constitution. And why is it relevant? You know, people think that telecommunication is not linked with land. And if you went to investigate the satellites, you need some land to put it up there to connect the whole world. You can't have construction as an industry, as a sector, without land. You just can't. From the soil, from the cement, from the bricks. If you check around here, even the iron, any material that you see here, the microphone and everything else, it's made from stone, this thing, this material. So in all the sectors of the economy, you need land. At the center of it is land. And yet, our leaders, who are supposed to provide leadership to us, and we don't want to go into political space, I don't like politics, they simply ignore those things. Spiritually, you need land. This, you know, once you have land, you are very powerful. So I think I should not take it further. Thank you very much. I hope that we are led. We usually focus on research and all of that, and once you focus on that, it's very difficult to be in a leadership space. So I hope that we are led and we are able to make the contribution that is required, and that at the right stage, led by women and men of this province and in the country, the contribution that is required will be made. I'm sorry, I had some commitment at around 10:30, so I'm not very important. I'm not going to speak and leave immediately. Thank you very much.
Good morning, fellow natives. What is happening today is not what happens every day in Polokwane. But I guess from today, Polokwane and Limpopo are not going to be the same because they are not supposed to. As I was listening to speakers previously, this moment for me feels like the moment when Biko and others rebelled and went on their own, because there was no way that their destiny could be shaped by other people except themselves. And the moment that has gained momentum and has eventually arrived in Limpopo, it's a moment that is long overdue. 1994 was supposed to be a native moment that we had been waiting for many years. We fought, we died for. And in 1994, we thought that moment had arrived. We came to realize later that it wasn't it. But we still harbored hope that it would be over time. Madiba, Zizi Tabombeki, Halima, Jay-Z, and today it's Matamela Ramaphosa. We're still waiting. The native movement has not arrived. And the way that things are panning out, it may never arrive. At least within the establishment as it is. It's about time that natives take their destiny into their hands. Biko Hele did that, and in a way, they were liquidated. Biko was physically killed. And the philosophy that he gave this country, I think we all know what happened, how demonized and how condemned the philosophy of pre-consciousness was. There were all sorts of wild accusations against pre-consciousness, that it was the pre-consciousness movement was a CIA project. I'm not sure whether it's Tate Dube or is it Prof who said, when we stand up and proclaim our nativity, we are going to be condemned. And the first people who are going to condemn us will be people who are supposed to be in the trenches with us. We need to know that the reason why we are still here is because we have not been able to chart a movement such as this one. And in my view is that we need to build pockets of this movement in every sector of society so that in the end we have a body of natives who are going to analyze the state of the native nation in South Africa and chart the way forward. In my view, the native movement is a movement whose time has come. Thank you.
I think it's a bad idea to ask me to come here. I really think so. I was here for the food, and I still haven't eaten anything. I had a pre-starter for breakfast. I still haven't had a starter for breakfast, main course for breakfast, and dinner for breakfast. Whatever it is that you want to call. I'm not really a good public speaker, and I think I'm in the wrong. Sometimes it's better to accept that you're in the wrong place. You know, I think I'm in the wrong place. And, I think I'm in the wrong place, or the timing is wrong for me. I don't think I belong to this group. I have my own reasons, and I don't think we are in the same place in life and in thoughts. And sometimes I can come here and bullshit you and say, well, the point is I'm here for the food, and there's nothing anybody can do about it, you know. One of the things that the organizers did, I think it's a beautiful place. The food I still have to eat, then I'll worry about the rest. But still, we are talking about native, but this is white-owned premises. So now we are defeating the purpose of what we are trying to say or trying to do. So I still don't get it. One of the things that during my past life or during my travel is that I get to accept who I am. And then you'll have, I see there's a lot of anger, you know. One of the things that I can advise, I'm not a member of the native, just a, is that whatever that you do, take out the anger out of it. You know? I see people that are very angry here, you know. And when you are angry, you will make a lot of mistakes, you'll end up regretting, you know. And then anger is natural, it's the nature of a person, but you have to get past it, you know. Some of us believe in a different origin. Genesis, I think it's all bullshit. You know, we all have a different approach. I think some of the things that was done is that we Africans were originally there from the beginning of time. We were not there with somebody genetically modified later. An improvement of the Neanderthal, like the white people that take a genetic marker from us and improve on themselves. According to African history, is that in the beginning when the white came to be, the Africans who were there at that time, when they look in the eyes, they were so ashamed that even now we're still having struggled to look into white people's eyes because it was a great shade in our area, or in that area. But one thing I think we need to accept and acknowledge is that white people are better than us. It's in their nature to conquer. They came here, we gave them the land. Our grandparents did nothing. We just gave them the land. We gave them everything. It's in their nature to take. Okay. So until we accept that maybe they are better than us, then how are we going to learn from them? Instead of being angry at their grandfathers or forefathers, we can actually learn from them. And learning from them, once we learn from them, is the only way you can conquer them. You can't conquer them by being angry and we are not going anywhere. I apologize for saying that, you know. It's the cause of the Caucasian person. It's his nature to conquer. It's his nature to kill. There's nothing wrong with it. It's who they are. You understand? So for us to appreciate or to understand who they are, then we can move forward. You understand? You know, one of the things that we do that we are all wrong, we are all guilty of, is that we don't support government. I heard the professors talking about the difference between EFF and ANC, and then the whatever that is. But the biggest problem is us, the citizens who vote. You understand? We vote for them. We expect them to do the best that they can. But instead we go outside, we criticize the government. Whatever they do, it doesn't matter good or bad, we criticize it. And we are the first people to talk bad about the government in front of the white people. You know, it doesn't matter the government is wrong or the programs are shitty, but it is our job to promote them or to try to go further with them. You know, I'm an ANC and EFF member, can cut for both. And there's nothing wrong with it. If you have a problem, then go and kill yourself. I'm sorry. But I just think, man, one thing that we can do is to try to work with the government. It doesn't matter the government doesn't want to work with us, but we can work with the government. We can do things that are proper in support of government. It's the only way for Africans to progress. Travela.
Morning, fellow natives. My name is Selejine. I've actually refrained from calling myself with my apartheid name, if I can call it. So, yeah, that. So, I'm in government. I was a former auditor, and then I'm also a golfer. Now, the reason I'm talking about being a golfer is because we are talking about natives here. And some of us then get to engage with the white people on a social level and not necessarily on an authoritative one at the golf course. So you get to learn a bit about their behavior in terms of how they live. So part of being an auditor again is that when you raise a finding, to sort of like avoid a recurrence of that finding, you need to deal with the root cause. So most of our black problems is the fundamentals. And I'll give 4 examples. And the main one is that black people don't know who they are. And white people know exactly who black people are. So what they do is they keep telling you that you are stupid, that you are lazy, that you are corrupt, so that it becomes your reality. When in true essence, they know that you are more powerful than them. I can give a simple example. You look at soccer. They excluded blacks from participating. Things change because of evolution. The same reason I'm sitting here, we're not supposed to be here. So it means 20 years from now, whatever it is that they're trying to block will still reverse. So what they do is, once they include the blacks, how you know a black person is intelligent is their motor skills. When a soccer player dribbles, they are using their motor skills. Their motor skills are way faster than a white man. So the white man will be slow in reacting to the dribble. It exposes them. And then it will become obvious that they are actually inferior, if I may call it. So I think the key thing is to learn who we are and their behavior. They are pathological liars by nature. The key, they use one trick. There's no lie without a truth. So usually a white person speaks in opposites. When they say left, they don't want you to look right. Because once you wake up to that reality, everything else becomes obvious to you. Because for example, if I bring it to the present, we're wearing masks, and I'm not discouraging that. But I was having a discussion at the table with a colleague there to say, you can survive for 15 days, 20 days without food and water, but you cannot survive for more than 5 minutes without oxygen. And yet you are depriving yourself of that oxygen because now you are doing carbon dioxide toxicity. Now, I'm not even a health expert, but it's part of black people having the responsibility to sit and read. And particularly read books that are written by black people. For example, my sister was talking about a library there. You've got authors like Dr. Laila Africa, Dr. Sebi, they've got books written. And that is the best people you can trust in terms of getting the right information. So, in a nutshell, I think that is the main challenge, because we will keep repeating the same mistakes, because what they do, white people, is they shift goalposts. That's their nature. I mean, also again, I was sitting at a golf tournament, I think we were about 6 blacks sort of, plus 65 white people. And I'm busy sitting there on the sun. And then I realized I'm alone on the sun, because other players are still playing there, but the ones that have come back are here. And all white people are just within the shadows. And we lack, our ignorance is the lack of knowledge that we have. To say the sun, for example, is a giver of life. You understand? Now, when you're sitting there, you're getting your vitamin D directly from the sun. Plants that are green are getting hydrogen from the sun. That's why they're green. And then they will substitute what is natural with what is man-made. You get your supplements for vitamin D when we don't need those things. then you realize our differences. My sister was talking about them being unable to pronounce our names, or saying, mispronouncing whatever African word. And the true reason for those things, the true reality is that whatever white people cannot do biologically, they hide it as a preference. For example, our lips are thicker than theirs. Now, if you give a black person an orange to suck, they will extract as much, too much juice from the orange more than the white person, because your thick lips have extra muscles for you to do that. Your voice is at a higher pitch. That's why you can say Mpumalanga and they say Mapumalanga. It's biological, it's not a preference. Them not liking sound, like noises, is because sound travels magnetically through your bones first. We've got thinner bones, they've got thicker bones. But they put it as if it's a preference, when it's actually a biological deficiency. So once you learn all those basics, then everything else becomes simple. You actually even see their tactics from a mile away. So for me, that is the most important thing. Then thereafter, we can mix with the conditions we find ourselves, which is socially, economically, or politically. Because all those things are based on the psyche. Yeah, that's my point. Thank you.
I've been ruled that I have to give you an opportunity. It's only 2 minutes. Thanks.
Xubera, thank you very much for arranging this event, and indeed we are having some serious challenges, and we need a better way of organizing the people. We can be educated, we can read a lot of books, but as long as we don't have followers, then our knowledge at the end will become redundant. I know that wherever Prof. Madikana is, the establishment comes very hard. I've seen him, I followed him when he was working with COSATU. And we know the results. COSATU is no longer the same COSATU that was working with Prof. Madikana. It's a different one now. That is how the establishment deals with whatever Prof. Madikana tries to assist or build. So we know the problems that our communities are facing. We know the problems that we are facing also. The issues of frustration in terms of running government and providing services and development to our communities. And we are not afraid. It's just that those who we trust that they will come and organize and lead us, they always disappoint us. But we are not afraid. Whatever we can start, we are not afraid to challenge those who are in power. But the problem is that whenever we try to assist, then we get failed. We know the challenges, like one speaker here talked about the problems in traditional leaderships within communal communities. We know those challenges. I'm even get frustrated whenever I have to go to my village, because the problems that are there, they are not challenged. People are
even turning complacent with all the challenges that are there. So if we are going to start and we are going to get support, then we must be able to assist people who are going to come and be with us. We mustn't be the same as the existing political organizations. I'm a member, I'm still active within the movement. We know that they will spare you until when they need you. When you need them, they are not there. So even ourselves, we can be there, they will be with us as long as we assist them. And we know their problem and we are ready to work and assist and turn the table. Thank you very much.
And stand by that all the time, strategies to save us, because many movements die because, or they get diluted, like the ANC. The ANC actually for me died in the 60s when they allowed liberals to come and define what should a black leader be, or what should the vision of South Africa be. Once they dealt with the issues of the Freedom Charter, when they talked about non-racial society, which is a cool word for racism, because once you talk about non-racialism, whereas another group is still not regarded as human, which means you have actually regarded from the normative conception of being human. I think with those few words, I would like to thank you for coming and hand over to Xolani to finish up.
I think we are done. And what I really appreciated is that we have diverse views, of which is very important, because we need also to probe and question what you are trying to achieve. And so such kind of questions are very important, because sometimes when you are in a particular mission, you put passion and you always think that you are right. And then the person who asks controversial question, I think is a very important person, because it shapes your thinking, it makes you think deeper, and it makes you focus. And so we are not a church, as I said. We like, when we welcome critical thinking, we like to be criticized, we like to be dissected, we like everything that you think that we don't like when we try to, as we are trying to achieve this, because without that, we are not going to achieve anything. And another thing is the spirit, I know numbers in terms of marketing and in terms of using them as a scarecrow is very important, but we need not to start from there. We need to start from having people who really think. And I don't think that any nation moves by numbers, but it's a nuclear of few people who are at the center. And then that nuclear always decide the direction of everyone. Look at the parliament. There are only 400 people there. But look how they play the other 50 by how many millions, And so let's say our strength must be on the side of our thinking, must be on the side of our honesty, and must be on the side of what we want for the natives. And so that's the number, that's the first number that we have. And if we achieve that, trust me, people will follow us, because they are not following us, they are following their own destiny. And we were talking with Eddie. To be quite honest, I'm very pleased with the number that we have here in Limpopo or in Bulwane, because we were not expecting, and it's breakfast, and it's only white people who invite black people for breakfast. You get what I mean? Black people, they don't invite each other for breakfast. And they select few people for breakfast, And so it was a risky to come to Limpopo and do breakfast. And breakfast for black people or for the natives. But we have achieved, and I'm really pleased, And another thing, we don't bus people. That's very important. We don't bus people. People, they come here voluntarily, of which is an indication of their willingness to be part of this. And another thing, before I do something very interesting, it is not me and Chris or an inside factor who are behind this. We have managed in Gauteng to have a structure, as well as in Durban. And one gentleman was saying we have to come to the side of the country, and we are here. And we'll go to the Eastern Cape, we'll go to Mpumalanga and all other provinces that were constructed for us, just to go and negotiate with those natives in those provinces. And when we move around, we always identify people that we can work with. And they are not leadership. We don't buy that nonsense of leadership, These are people who are going to assist us to coordinate, and we don't have money, we don't have resources, there is no position, and that's why you say we don't want volunteers, because people who are volunteers, sometimes they just sit at home and do nothing, and then they say, I will do it, and then you get swamped by other responsibilities, and then what you are trying to achieve becomes secondary. And so we used to approach people and ask them to come and assist us. And those people who must assist us, they must have their own means. That must be because we don't want people to call us and say, Professor, can I have 50 rand so that we don't, because it's, when you say I don't have money, and now it's like, this guy, what is happening? And so we don't want those tensions. And when we say so and so come to Johannesburg or Durban, you must not say, my flight, can you book my flight? Because we can't book you a flight. You have to see to yourself, and also the accommodation, And so we decided to say we'll approach people on the basis that use your resources to achieve this. That is the highest sacrifice. Use your resources. And so in this case, we have to be open to say there are people that we identify in this room, and there are those that we said we have to give them a breather, because you can see that if I say, hey, and then the person will say, I can't come, we have to be realistic. We need not to massage each other's egos, and, let us be bruised from the onset. Let's bruise your ego from the onset. And so Machi is the person, Dr. Machi is the person who has been assisting us a lot in this province. And so he's part of the team. He's the one who will be leading the team in terms of mobilizing and in terms of developing some of the document and liaising with the national leadership. Not leadership, how can I put it? We don't have a structure, coordinators, and this one is not because of the quota female and so forth. And so you'll be working close with him. And there are other people that we said they must also be part of your team. Xubera, as well as your husband. And there was a lady that was sitting here. Is she still around, or she left? Okay. And also there is a gentleman, a golfer, who has studied the white people. And so he's going to be part of us. And what we said, they all sit down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5. And the 6th one. And they all sit down and they will decide, because we don't want to interfere, Chris. And they will decide who else they think that around the province they can bring. What we don't want people who are trying to revive their careers through this structure. I know you have been expelled, and we are, trust me, we are going to expel you. You will be called and say, we are fulfilling the mission of expelling you. And so we don't want people who are here with a mission of saying they want to revive their political career, or they are going to weaponize the structure for this and that. We don't want those people, to be quite honest. And we don't want people who are angry. Because once a person is angry, it's going to be destructive also in this structure. We don't want that. And we want people who are focused, and people who have interpersonal skill, and people who really are in for this. There is nothing. There is no money, there is no tender, there is no luxury, except there is a lot of work. And so if we are prepared, once we are done with our breakfast, we will sit there with Chris, and then we will discuss a few things, and then from there we will take it from there. And I guess, Chris, is there anything that I'm not saying that is so important? Okay, I guess I've said it all. And so let's do this so that we don't waste time. I think the people that I've asked, they can go and sit with Chris there, and while we are having breakfast, and then you can have a conversation, because immediately after that we need to drive and go back to Gauteng, and so we don't want to waste time. And so you'll have breakfast, and then Can they move and sit there? It's only 1, 2, 3. And my brother, the filler, and the other one at the back, can you give the opportunity for the guys to sit? Thanks. I guess we are done. You do have our WhatsApp. Surely you are on our WhatsApp group, ne? Most of you, or you are not? Okay. Or else if you are not, can you take this number 082 082? Are we ready? Sorry? I see yenza nge-WhatsApp, my stress. Yeah. 082 352 4277. 082 352 4277. Tolan Dube, and then you can send a WhatsApp if we have not done it before. If you have, we are covered. Are you sorted? Have you sent a WhatsApp before, or are you part of the Native Forum? Yeah? Sorry? Sorry? Okay. No, I will add you. If you have sent a message to me, and then I will add you to the WhatsApp group. Okay. My brother, I think we are done. Let me do that. Let me ask the guys to give you the breakfast. Thanks.